Hi there, hobby friends. Here we have the original Necromunda. Well, the box and some terrain anyway. In my opinion, the original Necromunda is the best Necromunda. And then there's more time. But otherwise, this game captivated me as a child, and I must have spent months of my life staring at the rule pages and all those funky pictures in there. So when the chance came up to snavel this box at a bargain price, I jumped on it. To start this resto mod, as it were, I got out some soapy water, a sponge, and started cleaning the cardboard. Wild stuff, I know. If you're going to do the same, don't be too vigorous. Just a bit of mild dishwashing detergent in a warm soapy bucket will do just fine. This will be more than sufficient to remove the 3 decades of cheesy pizza finger marks off it. While cleaning the cardboard, I realised there was quite a bit of glue tack and sticky tape. Do not ever put glue tack on your precious cardstock, as it is full of oil and it will leach into it. If you ever need to make minor repairs as well, don't use sticky tape, use Mod Podge. That's exactly what it was designed for. Luckily in this case, both the glue tack and the sticky tape came off with minimal issue. Once I was done cleaning the cardstock, I got onto the bulkheads. This was a simple process. I got out my hobby knife, scraped off the mould lines, and then with a bit of sandpaper on a sanding sponge, 240 grit in this case, I tidied up the rest of it. I then threw them into the bucket of warm soapy water to clean off any remaining residue. I then turned my attention back to the now dry cardstock. Using a fresh hobby knife, I trimmed off any remaining knobs that were left over from when the cardboard was punched out originally. Once this was all tidied up, I got stuck into the tears. It's pretty easy really. Using some watered down Mod Podge, I reinforced any bits where there were wrinkles or crinkles in the cardboard, and then where the full-blown tears were, I frayed out the individual fibres of the cardboard, put the pieces back together, and then used more Mod Podge to basically glue them together. I took extra time to make sure it all lined up nice and neat so the bulkheads would still slide in properly. I then cut out some similar kind of cardstock that I had lying around and glued it on, again with more Mod Podge. Once you've taken time to make sure it all lines up, just get stuck into it. Remember, it's more important to rescue this terrain than to worry about ruining it. You really can't. It's just cardboard, guys. Get it done. Once the major torn pieces were fixed and set aside to dry, I got stuck into the rest of it. Using yet more Mod Podge, I went around and reinforced any bent bits or crinkled bits. The resin / PVA glue mixture that's essentially in Mod Podge really does help in this regard. It stiffens things up nicely. For the frayed edges, I used some watered down Mod Podge and liberally applied it along to the fibres of the cardboard. This 30-year-old dry cardboard sucked it in like the proverbial camel at a watering hole. And it was the work of a moment, then pinched the fibres together and they were set and done. As I was going around fixing the edges, I also reinforced the grooves in which the bulkheads slide into, just to add a bit more rigidity and strength. Hopefully the work I'm doing here today means this terrain will be around for another 30 years. How cool is that? Now, for the central main tower, I decided it was just too far gone to keep pulling it apart and putting it back together again to lay down flat in the box. So I decided to glue it together. Out came the Mod Podge yet again, along with some small clamps, and I spent a few minutes finagling it together to make sure it's all nice and square. Once I had it all clamped up, I then reinforced the edges with yet more Mod Podge and then set it all aside to dry. To bulk paint these bulkheads, I was really going to have to use my noggin if I didn't want to spend a month doing it. I decided spray cans were the way. I started off with Dulux's clear plastic primer, 2 coats per side. I then used some Dulux vintage charcoal from their Chalky range of paints, along with some desaturated blues, greens and tans to give a similar feel to the bulkheads as the cardstock terrain. In my mind, I didn't want to do the whole typical spray paint it black, dry brush it, lead belcher, like I myself did 30 years ago when I originally had Necromunda. Once dry, I then used 2 coats of gloss varnish in preparation for the next step. Next step being oil paints. Seriously guys, if you do terrain, do not use acrylic washes, do not make some messy thing of water and paint that dries and gets all sticky halfway through. Just get some odorless spirits and some cheap oil paints and make your own washes. The work time is like forever and the effects you can get are amazing. Look at this rust, capillary action, gorgeous. I then let these sit for 1 hour and came in with a sponge to give them their first initial wipe off. To further repair the cardstock while the oil paints are drying, I got out this packet of earth tone acrylic brush tip pens from Sharpie. I first heard about these on Tabletop Minions channel by Uncle Atom as he was raving about them, and I've got to say, for about $40, they are a great investment. Pick them up from any Officeworks. Using this desaturated grey, blue-ish colour that came in the packet, I went around the edge of the cardstock because it was a great match for the cardstock. The dried cardboard sucked the acrylic paint straight out of the pen, and that beigey, browny, yellowy card edge just disappeared. I think this really pumped up the appearance of this cardstock. I probably spent a good hour and a half to 2 hours going around the edges, nice and fine. What I think really made it pop though was when I got out the yellow and the black and did the edges along the hazard stripes. Seriously, when you put this all together and those edges have all been coloured in, it makes it look so fire. Highly recommend it. If you get some of this terrain and there's just one thing you do, and it's this, it's seriously worth the time and effort. It is so easy, it just takes a little bit of time. But as you can see here, as you go along, anyone can do that. Now that the bulkheads have dried out overnight, I give them a second wipe down with a sponge and some odorless spirits, and then let them dry off a bit further in front of a heater fan. To protect my newly restored cardstock terrain, I decided to give it 2 coats both sides with Vallejo acrylic matte varnish. Before you get your knickers in a twist and go, Ollie, you're covering this beautiful gloss cardstock, please remember it's 30 years old and it's covered in a million little nicks and indentations, etc. If you have a look at this piece here, where I've given it 2 coats of matte varnish, you can't see anything. It looks nice and even and flat, and all the colours are showing up nicely. However, if you look at this piece, you can see every little nick and scratch and bit of snot that's stuck to it. 2 coats, acrylic matte varnish, make sure it's a good high quality one, and it will come out looking great. Now to add some final flourishes to the bulkheads before we assemble it all. I use some Vallejo's oxide rust and a stippling technique with a bit of sponge on the high wear areas to give a contrast of rust between the bright orange and some dark brown rust, obviously. I concentrate on areas around the doors and on ladders or where I envisage there would be a high wear area. I then follow this up with an overbrush or dry brush of my new favourite dark metallic paint, Magnesium by Acryl. This is, dare I say it, better than lead belcher. I follow up again in the same sort of high wear areas, on the rungs of the ladders, details of the bulkheads and around the doors. Further zhuzh up these bulkheads, I find adding some in-scale posters does the trick just right. For all of your terrain projects, I recommend using these. To find some, simply Google something along the lines of 40K, scale, posters, sci-fi, grimdark, etc. You can do this for Warhammer fantasy or whatever game you're using as well, and you'll find what you need. Just make sure you print them off on a laser jet printer, otherwise the colours will run. To apply, simply soak in some watered down PVA or Mod Podge and stipple them on with a stiff brush. As a final flourish to these bulkheads, I decided to do some graffiti. Once again, thanks to Uncle Atom from Tabletop Miniatures, I decided to use my new favourite hobby tool. That is the Sharpie paintbrush tipped acrylic earth coloured markers. You should be able to find them in any office works store around the country if you're in Australia, or online. I'm sure they are available widely. With that said, I decided to do my graffiti, doing the sci-fi swear words like flag or smeghead, etc. I think put some Brood Brothers or Blood for the Blood God here and there. And then always the Rogue Traeger classics such as Marines Out or Kill Kill Kill, spelt with 1 L per kill. And now it's time to put together the adult Lego. I had so much fun doing this. It really brought me back to my youth when I remembered first pulling these out of the cardstock and putting them together. So please, hobby friends, let me know what you think of what I've done. Are there any products you would have used? Any techniques you would have used? What do you think about the fact that I sprayed these with a matte varnish instead of leaving them gloss? But most importantly, if you liked this video and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I have plenty more on the horizon. Also, I'd love to hear if any of you out there have saved some of this terrain yourselves. Did you save it from a boot sale? Did you find it on the side of the road in the bin? I'd love to know. And with that, this video is coming to an end. If you'd like to stick around and see me playing with my brand new smoke machine that I bought for the princely sum of about $50 from Bunnings, please follow on. I obviously have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm having fun all the same. There is a fantastic channel called Atmos Seeker, a fellow Aussie like myself, who does a great job of explaining how to create thematic scenes, etc. for your gaming experiences. And he has lots of videos on how to use cheap smoke machines and modify them to create good effects. If you know of any other channels out there doing a similar thing, please let me know, as it'll help me improve my videos for the future. And with that, I'll see you next time, hobby friends.